All right, so get this, you know how we've been keeping an eye on cryptocurrency and how it's like shaking up the world of finance?
Uh-huh.
Well, now it's like right in the middle of a political scandal. We're
Yeah.
talking presidential endorsements, alleged scams, billions of euros just poop gone. And it all
Wow.
because of a tweet.
Really?
And for those of you who follow Jean Fidal's channel, he's been all over this story.
I mean, what's really crazy is how this whole thing in Argentina with President Javier Milei,
Right.
it shows like a weak spot where this brand new tech crashes into like the old game of power and influence.
Yeah, and it all started on Valentine's Day, of all days, February 14th, 2025.
Oh, wow.
President Milei tweets about this new Argentinian cryptocurrency, Libra,
Okay.
but he's not just mentioning it. He's like shouting it from the rooftops digitally, like this is the next big thing.
And the market like reacts immediately. Like
Right.
within minutes, Libra's value goes up 25%.
Really?
People are just piling in, fueled by the presidential like thumbs up and that classic fear of missing out.
Okay, but isn't that kind of like any celebrity endorsement? We see influencers pushing products all the time.
Sure, but there's a difference between like a beauty blogger raving about mascara and a president hyping an investment.
I see.
When someone in Milei's position puts their weight behind something, it comes with like a different kind of authority.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that means trust, especially for those who don't really get cryptocurrency.
And that trust can be taken advantage of.
Oh, cold life.
Because just 5 hours later, Libra crashes, wiping out billions.
Oh, wow.
44,000 investors are left holding the bag.
It's a classic pump and dump scheme,
Yeah.
but on a scale we don't see very often. And
Yeah.
what makes it even worse is the potential for abuse of power.
So is the accusation that Milei was part of this scam from the start?
Mm-hmm.
Or could he have been tricked too?
That's what investigators are trying to figure out.
Okay.
Was Milei like a willing accomplice? Did he deliberately mislead people for his own gain? Or was he genuinely excited about Libra and had no idea about the manipulation?
Right.
It all comes down to intent, which is always hard to prove.
But if he was just a naive supporter,
Yeah.
why all the secrecy and trying to control what people are saying? I'm thinking about that interview he did on Telenoticias where his team shut it down when the journalist started asking about the legal stuff.
That interview is like a key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Milei goes from confidently promoting Libra to using softer language,
Right.
like he was just informing the public.
I see.
And then that sudden interruption
Yeah.
it raises some serious concerns about transparency, especially since the unedited footage was leaked later.
It makes you wonder what they were so afraid of him saying.
Exactly.
And it also makes you think, who benefits from all of this?
Hmm.
Who are the people behind Libra, and what's their connection to Milei?
Well, some individuals are definitely under scrutiny.
Okay.
There's Mauricio Novelli, a financial trader with a shady past, and Mark Davis, who supposedly is the mastermind behind Libra.
I see.
But their exact roles and how much they were involved with Milei are still being investigated.
We've even seen reports about bribes involving Milei's inner circle.
Yeah, and don't forget those rumors about meetings at the Casa Rosada.
Right, the presidential palace.
Exactly, and a tech event with organizers connected to Libra.
Okay.
It's a tangled web, and every thread seems to lead to more questions.
Okay, so we've got a president possibly involved in a huge cryptocurrency scam.
Yeah.
Shady characters lurking in the shadows. And whispers of corruption reaching the highest levels of government.
Wow.
This is like something out of House of Cards.
It does have that dramatic feel, doesn't it?
It does.
But beyond the intrigue,
Yeah.
this situation shows a fundamental issue with cryptocurrency because it's still mostly unregulated.
Right.
It's vulnerable to manipulation, especially in countries with weaker institutions or a history of corruption.
And that brings us to a bigger question.
Okay.
We've seen other right-wing and far-right figures,
Yeah.
like Elon Musk and Nayib Bukele, embrace cryptocurrency.
Right.
Is there a pattern here? Is this just a coincidence, or is
Yeah.
there something deeper going on?
There are a couple theories.
Okay.
Some say it's the anti-establishment appeal.
Right.
Cryptocurrency, with its decentralized nature and promise of freedom from traditional financial systems,
Yeah.
it aligns with the rhetoric of these groups who often rant against government control and global institutions.
It's like their version of financial rebellion.
Exactly. They see it as a way to break free from the shackles of the system, to reclaim power for the individual.
Okay.
But there's another, maybe more worrying aspect to think about.
What's that?
Because cryptocurrency operates in a largely unregulated space,
Right.
it can be a powerful tool for those trying to avoid oversight,
I see.
potentially enabling things like money laundering or tax evasion.
So it's not just about bucking the system. It's about potentially exploiting a system with fewer rules and less accountability.
Precisely.
Right.
And that's where things get really interesting, because it raises questions about how we regulate a technology that was meant to be borderless and decentralized.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it seems like we're at this crossroads with cryptocurrency.
Mm,
On one hand, there's this potential for innovation and like disrupting things.
yeah.
But on the other, there's this Wild West vibe that makes it right for people to take advantage.
And that's what makes the Milei case like a warning.
Right.
It's not just about one president and one supposedly shady cryptocurrency. It's about understanding like the bigger picture
Okay.
and the risks involved, especially when powerful people get involved.
Right. And I think it's easy to get caught up in the hype and all the jargon.
Yeah,
But for a lot of people, this is all still pretty new.
right.
So let's take a step back for a second
Okay.
and talk about what cryptocurrency actually is and why it's so unpredictable.
So basically, cryptocurrency is like digital money that uses cryptography for security.
Okay.
It's decentralized,
Right.
meaning no government or financial institution controls it.
I see.
And that's a big part of its appeal for some, this idea of financial freedom, of
Right.
breaking away from the traditional system.
But that lack of regulation also makes it risky, right?
Yeah.
That's why we see these crazy price swings.
Totally.
These stories of people getting rich and losing everything overnight.
Exactly. It's a super speculative market
Uh-huh.
driven by things like supply and demand, media hype,
Right.
and even social media trends.
Wow.
And because there are no safeguards like you'd find in traditional markets,
Yeah.
it's easy for manipulators to come in and take advantage.
And that's where things like rug pulls come in?
Right.
We talked about this earlier,
Uh-huh.
but maybe you could explain it a bit more.
Sure.
What are some red flags that investors should watch out for?
Well, a rug pull is basically a scam
Okay.
where the people who create a cryptocurrency pump up its price artificially, often through misleading marketing or even straight up lies.
I see.
And then they suddenly sell off all their holdings,
Right.
causing the price to crash
Yeah.
and leaving investors with tokens that are worthless.
So what are the signs?
One red flag is a project that promises crazy returns.
Okay.
Or hypes itself up as the next big thing without any real proof.
Uh-huh.
Another warning sign is if they're not transparent about the team behind the project,
Right.
their experience, and their goals.
So it's about doing your research.
Exactly.
Like with any other investment.
Yeah,
Don't just jump in blindly because a celebrity or politician is promoting it.
absolutely. And that's even more important with cryptocurrency, where information can be manipulated and spread online so quickly.
And this brings us back to why cryptocurrency is so attractive to right-wing figures. We mentioned Milei Bukele.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a pattern here?
Yeah.
Is this just random, or is there
Oh.
something more going on?
It's definitely a trend worth looking into.
Right.
One possible explanation is that cryptocurrency taps into this idea of individual power and going against authority,
Okay.
which fits with some right-wing ideologies.
I see.
They see it as a way to challenge the existing power structures,
Mhm.
whether it's governments, central banks,
Right.
or international organizations.
But couldn't you say that this also appeals to people on the left?
Yeah,
Anyone who feels left out or doesn't trust the current system?
totally. And that's where things get complicated.
Okay.
Cryptocurrency, at its core, is
Mhm.
a technology, a tool.
Right.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or bad,
I see.
depending on the intentions of the people using it.
So how do we separate the good uses of cryptocurrency from the potentially bad ones? Is regulation the answer?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something that policymakers and regulators around the world are struggling with.
I bet.
One approach is to focus on consumer protection,
Okay.
making sure that investors have access to accurate information and are aware of the risks.
Kind of like truth in advertising laws for the crypto world.
Exactly. And there are also discussions about regulating cryptocurrency exchanges,
Right, the platforms where people buy and sell?
right, to prevent market manipulation and money laundering.
Okay.
But it's a delicate balance. Too much regulation could stifle innovation and go against the core principles of decentralization that make
Right.
cryptocurrency attractive to many.
So it's about finding that balance between protecting consumers and encouraging innovation.
Precisely, and it's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
One that will probably evolve as the technology itself grows and we understand its potential benefits and risks better.
It's amazing how this one thing in Argentina, this whole Libra mess, has brought up so many questions about the future of finance technology and even politics.
It really does show how connected these systems are. You know, we often think of them as separate.
Yeah.
But what happens in the crypto world can have real-world effects,
Right.
impacting economies, governments, and people's lives.
And it shows how important it is to be informed, to
Absolutely.
understand not just the technology,
Yeah.
but also the social and political forces that shape how it develops and how it's used.
Exactly. Knowledge is power,
Right.
especially in a field as complex and fast-changing as cryptocurrency.
Hmm.
The more we understand, the better we can handle the risks and the opportunities that are out there.
So where do we go from here?
Well,
What are the key things for someone who might be listening to all this and thinking, okay, this is interesting, but what does it mean for me?
well, first of all, it's a reminder to be careful.
Right.
Cryptocurrency can be a tempting investment,
Yeah.
but it's super important to do your research,
Right.
understand the risks,
Yeah.
and never invest more than you can afford to lose.
It's like that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Exactly.
Especially not a basket that's likely to drop suddenly.
Diversification is key.
Right.
And remember, just because someone famous or a politician is promoting a certain cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it's legitimate.
I see.
Do your own research.
Uh-huh.
Look beyond the hype
Okay.
and find independent sources of information.
Speaking of independent sources, I have to mention John Sfutel again.
Yeah,
His channel has been so helpful in explaining this whole Libra situation
absolutely.
and the bigger trends that are happening.
He's a great example of how citizen journalism can really make a difference,
Right.
holding powerful people accountable
Yeah,
and informing the public about complicated issues.
totally. And his work reminds us that we all have a responsibility to be critical thinkers when it comes to information, to question things and to dig deeper.
That's what critical thinking is all about.
Right.
And it's more important than ever now.
Yeah, with so much information out there and all the online echo chambers.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of cryptocurrency, political influence, and financial scams, I'm left with one big question.
Okay.
Can a technology that was made to be decentralized and shake things up ever really exist peacefully within the current power structures? Or are we going to see more conflicts like the one in Argentina?
That's a question that only time will answer.
Right.
But one thing's for sure, this conversation is just getting started.
Yeah.
As cryptocurrency keeps evolving and more people use it,
Uh-huh.
we're going to see more of these overlaps with politics, finance, and society as a whole.
Right.
And it's our job to stay informed,
Yeah.
to be part of these conversations, and to shape the future of this technology in a responsible and ethical way.
That's a great point. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. I really appreciate your insight.
It was my pleasure.
And for our listeners out there, keep exploring, stay curious, and as always, be careful out there.